So as you can tell from the title of this video, I'm going to be discussing a topic from the Jamaica Gleaner. So let's just scroll down and dive into this. Bad mind, active crime, violence, corruption, and envy, the worst things about living in Jamaica. Now don't see this as a video on bashing Jamaica, so just, watch it further to learn more about these things and why they're being brought up in the first place. Crime, violence, and bad-mindedness have emerged as the main issues that cause most Jamaicans to be not so proud of the country. Corruption, unemployment, and poverty also figure high on the list when Jamaicans were asked about the things that make them not so proud or ashamed of the country and cause them to dislike living here. That, according to a recent Gleaner Commission Bill Johnson poll that tested the pulse of the nation on the perceptions of Jamaicans after 55 years of independence. The poll, which was conducted from June 9 to 11 across the island with 1,500 respondents and a sampling error of plus or minus 2%, found that 74% of respondents listed crime, violence, bad-mindedness, and corruption as the things that made most ashamed to be Jamaicans, with poverty, unemployment, and ineffective government added to the list for 92% of the reasons persons don't like living in the island. The findings are not surprising for Professor Trevor Monroe, Executive Director of the anti-corruption group National Integrity Action, which is NIA. In 2016, Kingston ranked 32 among the top 50 cities in the world with the most mayors per 100,000 population, and if St. James and Westmoreland were cities, they too would also be in the top 50, Monroe told the Gleaner as he reacted to the poll findings. According to Monroe, white-collar corruption remains deeply entrenched at levels of politics and businesses in the Jamaican society, and there is a definite link between crime and corruption. That is a view shared by psychologist Leah... How do you say this guy's name? Is it Leah Sim? Who knows? Leah Sim Samaj, who charges that Jamaica's political system contributes to a high level of crime. So, the government, it looks as if people aren't really pleased with the way they do things, or like how politicians are elected. I don't know. A large number of our people are still living in garrison communities, which I guess is what they call ghettos, and criminal behavior is tied to many of those communities because, of course, they have nothing better to do with themselves, so they're always just rioting and just doing all sorts of bad things. We can't really take the politics out of it. It is the fabric that makes up the Jamaican culture, said Simaj, as he charged that bad-mindedness is a pervasive part of our culture. What goes into bad mind is jealousy and envy. Whenever somebody is doing well, you always hear, "No man, I thief him, thief it. Man, I somebody help him." Instead of trying to see what they can learn from that person who is excelling, they look at ways to drag them back to their level, added Samaj, and that's very sad, and that just makes you effectively a lowlife. Seriously, if somebody is doing very well and they're succeeding and they're going far in life, how are you supposed to feel good about yourself if you're just trying to bring them down and make them low like you? You see, this causes a community of just poor living and low lives and just crime, and nothing is going to be resolved if you just live like that. Now, okay, before we carry on further with that, let's just read this final sentence here. He charged that this crab in the barrel mentality must be remedied in order for Jamaica to develop as an independent country. So that's that. Now, if we go back at the top here, let's just discuss some of these things. Okay, so yeah, about the bad mind part, I kind of already went into that, which is where somebody sees you doing well and they just want to bring you right back down just so they can feel good about themselves. But how will you really and truly feel good about yourself if you're just going to be bringing people down? Like, rather than creating a community of low lives and just negative people, if people could just look at the successful people and be like, well, okay, what have they done to succeed? Did they go to school? Did they hang out with positive people? Did they just study hard? Things like that. Then, it would make things a bit better. But because this bad-mindedness that they say is pretty pervasive, that's an issue. Okay, the next thing we see here is active crime, which is... Okay, I see active crime, violence, and corruption. So I guess active crime and violence are kind of tied into another because, active crime, is obvious. Well, no, not necessarily, because crime isn't necessarily always violent. So let's just say that by active crime, they didn't really mention the specifics here, like what people are mostly doing. Like, I don't know if it's like break and enter, or if it's like shooting, or smuggling, or human trafficking. But based on what I've heard, I think I pretty much have a good idea. Because, I just read the article, and we can all assume, no, not necessarily assume, but we know that guns and shootings and robberies are a big issue in Jamaica. And I'm sure Jamaicans themselves are aware of that, and they know that. So that needs to be stopped. But how that will be stopped is if... Okay, so for the solution for the active crime and the violence, I guess we just have to have more police on board, but sometimes there's not necessarily enough, or sometimes the police themselves even go corrupted. And that doesn't help when the government themselves can also be corrupted, because as they say, politics seems to be a pretty big issue here. So what exactly is wrong with the political system? I haven't looked too heavily into that, but I guess we can assume that, you know, if you look at the example, like say with Donald Trump, well, actually, no, that's a whole other bog in there. So I guess what we can say here for Jamaica is that the politicians probably aren't living up to their promises, and they're making people really disappointed. So that in turn is just making people upset, because they're not doing enough to address the violence, and they're not doing enough to address the poverty, and I guess the education, and that itself causes problems. Now, when I was talking about Donald Trump, for him, yeah, again, people really did not want that guy to be elected, and then because he's saying all sorts of mean, nasty things, or maybe he's not living up to his promise, and that people feel betrayed from him, that's causing a bit of issue up there. So I guess similarly in Jamaica, I don't know who the current president is, but I guess he too is not living up to his word, and that is making people upset and ashamed that crime, violence, and bad-mindedness and corruption are just so widespread and rampant. Okay, it also looks like unemployment too is another issue here, so for that to be fixed, you need more jobs. What happened to the jobs? Where are they going? Are they just not creating them? Are they being outsourced? That, I haven't looked into that too heavily, but if they're going to create more jobs, I guess they have to diversify. I don't know what their main economies revolved on. I don't know if it's like tourism or like bauxite exports. I think when I looked into that some time ago, I don't know what it is currently now, but let's just say that with less corruption and with more job creation, that should hopefully help. I don't know if they're outsourcing their jobs, which is causing people to lose their jobs. Or maybe it could just be the fact that people aren't trying hard enough. Like, remember what I said about hanging out with good people and just trying to stay in school? That too could also help, because let's face it, if you are uneducated, it will be much harder to find a job. I should say, like, high quality jobs, that is. Because sure, if you're uneducated, you can probably just take some cruddy low labor job or whatever, but then you won't feel satisfied, and the work hours will be bad, and I guess it won't really make you feel good about yourself with the low pay and the painful conditions. So you just have to go to school and just know what you want to do, study, work hard, graduate successfully, and you should hopefully find it easier to find a job, although sometimes, you know, people graduate or whatever and they can't find work in their field. So that is where you just have to diversify and just look out, just network, and just ask people around, okay, where can I find this job, or maybe consider alternative options for things that you like. So like, say if you like drawing and sciences, then you don't have to just limit yourself to say just sciences. You can also look into drawing or even like music, so that broadens your horizon. Now, okay, what else should I really discuss here, or should I just call it quits to this video? Actually, no, I guess I should just make some general remarks about what I think of Jamaica itself, because when I keep hearing about all these stories of how people keep getting murdered and shot and the robbery, it is pretty sad. Like, I mean, that isn't all there is to Jamaica, but it is a pretty big issue, and it can't be ignored. Like, you can't keep hearing about how, oh, Kingston is one of the most murdered cities in the world, and how the murder rates have spiked, and things like that have to do with the murder and people dying. Like, it's not good. Like, yes, it is a beautiful island. Don't get me wrong. It has beautiful beaches, and there's a reason why, you know, the tourism industry is very popular there. So let's just work together and work for the better, and just lay off the bad-mindedness and lay off the crime. Put your guns aside and just get along. Just be peaceful. Like, you don't have to just be so violent and so angry and just so envious. Like, that's the choice, and you can change that. So be positive and just work towards making the country and your life a better one. Now, I guess I can call it quits here. Okay, it probably would have been a good idea to leave this silly marimba outro music out of this video, but for some reason I didn't, so try not to pay much attention to it. Now, I wasn't able to talk as fluidly or in depth about the cause of some of these issues in Jamaica because I haven't researched them prior to this video, nor do I live on this island. I just found this interesting article and decided to read it and comment on the spot, hence why my commentary was rather lackluster. Now, did you like this video? Have you ever visited Jamaica before? Despite the issues, it's honestly a beautiful, interesting island. Comment, rate, like, subscribe, share, read my blog for information, and visit my Twitter page for my latest tweets. And do not forget to also participate in the polls in the top right corner in the I circle.